to another edition of the Dirty and Driven Podcast, baby. My name is James Bavay. I am your host on this amazing show today. Today, I'm joined by a man named Alex Strusa. Alex owns a company called DBM Equipment Repair in Nevada. Another Nevada guy on the show. We talk about some cool shit. We talk about how crazy the government of Nevada is again. We talk about his rise of building his company, where he started, going from just being a guy leasing a service truck to now having 9 employees, 10 including himself. And he's only 31 years old. He talks about how he's building a culture, training people from the ground up, and doing so much other cool shit. Man, there's so much value packed in this episode. He talks about getting kicked in the balls and humbled a few times in all aspects of business and his relationships and all that great stuff, man. So we talk about some awesome, valuable things that I know I learned a lot. And I hope that whoever listens to this will too. Before I get into that, just want to say real quick, if you're new here, this is the Dirty and Driven Project. This is where we bring people to the blue-collar world, teach them how to kick ass. We are here to gain, train, and retain people in the blue-collar world. We want to just make the trades a better place. We want to make this a sustainable career that people want to work in and people love to work in. So we just want to help individuals figure out how to navigate this crazy industry to where they can succeed and grow and all the awesome opportunities that are out there. And we also just want to help companies that want to help themselves and want to kick ass and want to learn how to appeal to a newer generation and how they can give their people a great opportunity for success and how they can set their people up for success, which in turn sets you up for success. And Alex talks a lot about that today. If you're new here and you want a free sticker, just DM us or email us the word sticker. You can follow us at Dirty and Driven. You can follow Alex at DBM_equipment_repair, and that'll be in the show notes, as will all of our stuff. I also want to say, guys, if you like the show, right now we're doing this for free. We don't run ads, and that's for a reason. Not saying we never will, but just want to say that we don't right now, and that's just because we want to spread this message that we're spreading. But we do have a tip jar. It's called Just the Tip. If you go under our Linktree link inside the show notes or at our social medias, you can give to us there. You can give $1. You can give $20. I don't care. We've had some people give generously, and I'm just so thankful for all of you who have done that. That's how we grow the show. All that goes to just buying more stuff, getting more merch, getting video equipment, all that good stuff. So if you want to give to that, and also just know that we're working on some other great projects that you guys will be able to support us with. So just keep that in mind. We got some cool stuff coming down the pipe, and I'm excited to talk about it in some future episodes. But this episode's not about that. This episode is about Alex, and here he is. I heard your podcast with Colton, and it was a pretty good show.
Oh, okay, yeah, it was a fun time.
Yeah. So was that the only other podcast you've done, or have you done others?
Yeah, that's the only one.
Cool. How do you know him?
Just for Facebook, actually. And then I ended up going to my cousin's wedding down there, and so then I realized it was in the same place. I was like, "Hey, fuck, you want to do that?"
Nice.
He's like, "Yeah, come on over." So I Ubered over to his place and had a crazy ride over there, but it was a good time.
Crazy ride over there.
Yeah, I got this Eastern European fella, and he drove like crazy and had all kinds of crazy stories. So it was like a 35-minute ride, and it was white knuckle the whole way.
I love those guys.
Yeah, it was full throttle and no blinkers. Didn't give a fuck. Just went for it.
Waited till the last second to brake, huh?
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome, dude. So where are you from?
I'm out of Fernley right now. My parents are pretty transient, so I've lived all over North Dakota, California, Nevada. But right now, live in Nevada.
Nevada? Okay.
Yeah.
We had a guy on here a couple weeks ago from Nevada.
Oh, okay.
Nevada show lately.
Right?
So what all
Yeah,
do
I
you
listened
do
to
up
that
there?
one.
Oh, you did
We
listen to that one?
do.
Sorry.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
We do mainly construction and mining, but we do a little bit of forestry. We do some, scrap metal stuff, some trash dumps, stuff like that. But mainly construction and mining.
Nice. All mechanicing, right?
Yeah, all mechanic and equipment rental.
Nice. Oh, okay. So you do equipment rental too?
Yep.
Nice. How much equipment do you have for rent?
So I have a skid steer Mini X and 872 John Deere blade, and then I re-rent a couple pieces of some dozers and stuff like that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't know you did all that. Huh.
So we re-rent a D7 and a D8.
Okay. And whenever you say re-rent, that means like you're renting it from someone else and then you're...
And then just rent it back out, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how's that work? Do you just do that because those are high demand machines and you keep them on hand, or?
Yeah, mainly. There's another guy that I'm friends with. He owns Iron King. They're like they're equipment rental, and then they do parts.
Okay.
So like a dismantler, new parts, all kinds of stuff. So they're his machines. I rent them from him, and then re-rent them down here.
Oh, okay.
But it works out pretty good for him because we're mechanics. So when he re-rents a machine, then when they break down, we go work on them.
Oh, yeah, it does kind of work out for him.
Yeah, so
huh?
a little double dipping. Yeah.
Huh. Rent your machines to mechanics. Got it.
Yeah. It works out in his favor because I want them up so I can get my money, and so I do them faster, and then he doesn't have to wait for dealer or anything to go look at them.
Huh. That's pretty cool. So is all your work focused in Nevada, or do you guys travel?
Yeah, we used to have operation out of Bullhead City, Arizona, but that job ended. So we're based. We have two spots in Nevada that we're mainly based out of. Right outside of Reno, which is where I am. It's Fernley, and then there's a mining town called Winnemucca. So I got 3 guys out of Winnemucca.
Oh, cool. What kind of mining do they do there?
Gold mining.
Gold mining.
Any heavy metals. They do silver, mercury, all that kind of stuff, but it's mainly gold.
Oh, okay. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we get to work on the big stuff. It's not as fun. It's really fun to go do, but it's not fun to do every day.
Really?
Yeah, it's just too big. It's a pain in the ass. There's too many rules. It's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, because I would imagine pretty much everything you're working on is all out in the field.
Yeah, I do have a shop. So we do frame up rebuilds. We're just finishing a 980G in the shop right now. So we'll tear it down to bare frame, rebuild all the components, rehose, rewire, and put it all back together.
Oh, okay. So you're just going out there working on big ass shit in the field, just tearing it down and going for it. Nice.
Yep.
Huh. Yeah. So that does seem all right. Well, let's talk about that because I get a lot of guys in my DMs, especially after I've had like Colton and Eric Strubig and some other mechanics on that say, yeah, man, I'm working as this kind of mechanic, but I want to get into the heavy equipment side of things. I'm curious to know just more about that right there where you're like, yeah, it's cool, but also a pain in the ass to do every day.
Right. For me, heavy equipment is where it's at. Like, we don't work on any kind of trucks. We barely work on our own trucks. I actually have a guy that we take a bunch of our stuff to because I just hate working on road trucks. That's like my bugaboo. I don't like it. But as far as heavy equipment goes, it's definitely, as far as I'm concerned, if you're a mechanic, that's where it's at, is doing heavy equipment. The mining equipment is a totally different game than heavy equipment, but there's a lot of guys that really enjoy the mining side of it.
Is it just a different game because of how much bigger it is?
How much bigger it is and the loopholes that you have to jump through. There's way more regulation. There's so much that they have to lose with that industry as far as like safety and things like that there's a lot that you have to jump through to do it.
Is it like safety, environmental, or just all of that?
Yeah, a little bit of both. The environmental, they're pretty heavy on that too. And it depends on where you're at, what sites and stuff like that. But they're MSHA and like construction MSHA, because we do quarries and stuff like that, gravel pits that have MSHA, and it's not even close. They're very particular about how you do. Like if you have a homemade tool in your truck, you're going to get a fine because you can't have any. It has to, everything you have has to be engineered. There's certain places that you can't lift with chains. You have to lift with sling. There's just a lot of rules like that.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. A lot of red tape.
A lot of red tape.
And I'm guessing you guys probably have to go through a lot of extensive training, background checks. That kind of stuff
it depends on where they're working at. But definitely, trainings and stuff like that, you have to have there's a thing called 5023s. It's like a sign-off sheet from MSHA. So every piece of equipment you go to move, you have to be signed off on it first. You have to be trained on it before you can move it. There's that, so say you want to bring a haul truck in to work on it. Well, you're going to have an operator or find somebody who is signed off on it before that thing can get. You can't just hop in and move it. Even though we're mechanics and we know how to work on it and move it, you can't until you have that paperwork.
Oh, wow. And you have to get that for every piece of machinery?
Every piece of machinery. So the only difference that you don't have to do is, if you have a CAT, say for 988, if you have like a G model and then you have a K model come in, you won't need one for the K, just to move it around.
So how do you get that piece of paper? Do you have to go through a course or?
Yeah, usually the mines, they'll set you up. If you're a mechanic and you're not actually operating it, they'll do a more basic one where they're not teaching you how to actually operate the machine as far as like productivity and stuff. But you got to either ride with another mechanic that's signed off, and they'll go through a checklist, show you how to check the oil, show you how to do all that stuff. And then, what buttons do what levers do what, joysticks. And then after they watch you run it for a little bit, they'll sign you off on it.
Huh.
But that brings a whole nother step into the maintenance side of it, because now you're taking hours out of your day instead of working on a piece of equipment. You're learning how to move it.
So how often do you have to redo that per piece of equipment? Like if you have a guy that's, say, certified for all the common pieces of machinery, how often does he have to get re-upped?
As long as he runs that piece of equipment within 1 year, 1 calendar year, then he doesn't need to do it. But if you go 1 calendar year without running that piece of equipment, it has to be redone.
Wow. That is a whole different animal.
Yeah. It's very time consuming, and like it makes doing your job really hard because there's a lot of stuff. Or like say you need something washed, you can't just bring a pressure washer there and wash it. You have to find somebody signed off on the pressure washer, bring it up there. Oh my gosh. You have to make sure that guy wants to pressure wash, and then if he's a shitty hand and he pressure washes like shit and leaves, it's your problem.
So it's all the way down to a pressure washer that you have to be signed off on?
Yep.
Jesus.
Yeah, so it's a whole different animal. It's very the guys that I have that do the mines, they're really good guys, and the reason that we do so good is, one thing about the mines is they have such a hard time getting people that there's a lot of really good guys in mining and there's a lot of really shitty guys in mining, just like there is in construction, but there isn't the high pace that construction is because there's so much red tape. If something goes down, they're just like, well, I guess it'll be here tomorrow when we get here. And it's like, okay, man.
Wow. That is absolutely insane. So the guys that do your mine stuff, are they in the mines full time, or are they just kind of there here and there? Or?
No, they're there full time. Okay. 3 of them are on contract, and then one of them just goes back and forth. So they go to the same spot 12 hours a day. Well, they run 14-hour shifts. They have about an hour to hour and 10-minute drive out there. Then they stay for 12 hours, and then they have an hour to an hour and 10-minute drive back.
Wow. Crazy stuff. Of course, those mechanics, man, every mechanic I know just puts a hell of a lot of miles on their trucks.
Yeah, they do. I ended up... Okay, yeah, so most of my guys, especially the mining side of it, we do it a little bit in construction, depending on how far out the job is, but they just have pickups to drive back and forth. They leave their service trucks on site, and then they drive their pickups back and forth during the week. On the weekend, obviously, they want to take the service truck home, they want to do stuff at the house, they take it home, but if they don't have anything, sometimes they just leave them there anyways and drive the pickup. Huh. It's cheaper for me, way less wear and tear on the service truck, and then they get home faster.
Yeah, that's way better, doing it that way if you can.
Yeah.
Huh, that's cool. So you own the company, right?
Yep.
Cool. And how many guys do you have working for you?
Yeah, we started 9 right now. We started in 2016.
Nice. Is that 9 including you or 9?
9 plus me.
Okay. That's pretty nice. Yep. And those are all mechanics, or do you have different roles too?
Yep. No, pretty much all field mechanics. We have one guy that works for us that he does a lot of PMs and stuff like that. He's kind of a greener guy, but he's still a service truck and everything. So
nice. So what would you say like the level of all your guys is? I mean, as far as experience goes.
I have 2 older. Well, one's an older gentleman. The other one's almost 50. The rest of us are all young. Really? So my youngest guy is 24, and then my oldest guy is 71.
You're 71.
So it just yeah. So the experience varies, but the biggest thing with us is I just found guys that maybe necessarily didn't fit in at other places. Kind of, so pretty much just found like misfits really that didn't want to work at dealers, that didn't want to have certain rules and that kind of stuff. And they're all just badass mechanics and they get their shit done.
That's cool, man. So you just took these guys that you're like, okay, so you don't fit in with all the rules, the red tape, the politics. Cause
right.
I mean, I didn't really know this, but just from talking to a lot of mechanic friends, I've learned that like the dealers and stuff like that, they have a lot of politics and red tape.
A lot of politics and red tape. That's all my dealer guys that I have left for that reason.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know. I think it's more about who you know, who you can blow and make it happen. Whereas a lot of guys, they don't want to deal with that. And they don't, like even my guys, if say they have my kid has a soccer game at 3 that I really want to go to, just tell the customer that I either needed you back at the shop or I'll tell the customer and go to your kid's soccer game.
Yeah.
The dealer, you're not doing that.
You basically just created a culture that is inviting to those guys.
Right. Yeah. Pretty much every single guy I have working for me directly is in contact with the person they're working for, the contractor that they're working for. They do all their own scheduling. They do all their own everything with them. There's a couple where we do a little job over here and a little job over here that I manage, but most of them have direct contact with the customer, and whatever the customer wants, that's what they go do. And so they make their own schedule. They do it all themselves.
Dude, that's so awesome. So tell me about that, because a lot of construction companies, and I guess just companies in general, they don't trust their people to do shit, but you're literally saying these guys are basically their own bosses using my equipment.
Yep, basically. And I've been burned before. I've been burned twice pretty hard on it. But it's one of those things. I think the guys I have right now, with the quality that they put out and the attitude that they have, is worth being burned twice over it.
How have you been burned before, if you don't mind me asking?
Them doing side work for customers without me knowing.
Yeah.
And both times it's been caught through billing. And so they were still getting paid from me and turned in their hours. And then when we turned it into the customer, they said, no, we already paid so-and-so for it.
Ooh. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it didn't turn out great.
Yeah. But I mean, that's where, I mean, props to you guys for that, for saying, not punishing everybody else for those.
Right.
Yeah. Because most companies would probably create a new policy. Well, you're not going to do this anymore. You have to do blah, 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 blah. But you're still telling your other guys, we still trust you. Just because these guys were assholes doesn't mean you guys are.
And when I worked for the dealer, that was one thing that I hated. Like, we had GPS on our trucks, and they could tell when they were running. They could tell where they were, that kind of stuff. And say I went over to my dad's house, and he's got an old tractor, and I wanted to help him work on the tractor with the service truck. I'd get a call. Why are you in the service truck? What are you doing? Why is the PTO running? That kind of stuff. Whereas my guys, if you go home and you got a tractor, your dad's got a tractor, your friend's got a tractor, if it's not a job directly that we would get paid for either way, I don't mind you using it. If you use it all weekend, throw some diesel fuel in it. Other than that, it's not a big deal. That's the whole point of being a field tech, is that you get those privileges. I mean, that's one thing, that you work a ton of hours, you miss a lot of stuff. It is nice to be able to, it's my truck, but the entire truck is full of your stuff. So there's a catch there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a hell of a point too, because they've got tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars of tools, some of these guys, and had that truck. So it's like, well, I need all my shit, but like, it's not as easy as just throwing it in the back of their truck and going and doing that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it takes hours to unload, and honestly, for a full service truck, it takes days to load and unload a service truck with all your stuff. So driving it over to your grandpappy's house to fix his tractor, this is not a big deal.
Yeah. That's cool, man. I wish more people were like that. And I mean, I get why more people aren't, but also I think that that's how you keep and retain good people, is just by trusting them.
Right. I agree. And that's one thing that I learned is, if you want really good guys, you have to show them just as much as respect as they show you. And it doesn't always work out. Like I said, I've been burnt, but I have a really low turnover rate. And I think it's because a lot of that.
Yeah. And
most of them will call me, they'll say, hey, just like one guy that works for me, Nate, he called me and said, hey, I got a cow that I'm going to have butchered. Can I bring my service truck over there to, it was a town that's 2 hours away from his house. He's like, can I bring my truck over there? We're going to hang the cow by the truck crane and do our thing. I'm like, yeah, dude, thanks for the call. Have fun.
Odd request.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Odd request, man. But if that's what you want to do, have at it.
That's funny. That's why I was not expecting that to go that way.
Right?
I gotta love rednecks.
Yeah, exactly. Nevada's the Wild West. It's full of them.
Hey, I'm in Oklahoma, so I know exactly what you're saying.
Right?
Dude, that's cool. So, yeah, I mean, trust in your people, because I just think that's so important whenever you're to have that culture. I mean, and it sounds like you've just basically said, yeah, be yourself, be who you want to be. I trust you, and don't screw me over.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's that simple. And so I guess of all those people, I mean, you've only had 2 that have burned you out of 9 guys that work for you currently. So, I mean, that's
Right.
pretty low odds. I think that no matter how many rules you have, the assholes are going to show, and they're still going to burn you.
That's the thing too. It just depends. They weed themselves out over time. It's just the way it works out. And we did get up to 15 guys at one time, and it just became too much for me to handle with my home life and everything. It wasn't fun. So we did scale back down, and we're at a really, I did just hire a guy. So that's why we're at the point we are now. But for the last year, we've been at 8+ me instead of 9+ me, just because it's so not, I wouldn't say easy, but it's very enjoyable to do right now at this level.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's something that a lot of companies have to look at, because I know a lot of companies that they want to grow, but they get to that point where either they grow so big that they got to keep feeding a monster that's really hard to feed. And it's like you said, it's not enjoyable anymore, but I mean, you got to keep enjoying what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah. And that's where a lot of business owners either go out of business because they get too big and then they don't scale back, or, they basically have too much pride to scale back, or they keep growing and they just hate what they do.
Right. And that's basically what it came down for me. It was my wife really just being like, hey, you're not happy anymore. This isn't going good. You either have to change it or we're going to change. And so I was like, no, you're right. Like we need to change it up.
Yeah. Dude, props to you, man. Because so many people in the industry would say, this is my job. This is my life. This is what I'm going to do. And those decisions right there have caused a lot of issues in a lot of relationships in our world. And that's good that you were able to say, well, you know what? No, you're right. Let's. Yeah,
it didn't come easy. It definitely wasn't as quick as that, but that's what it came down to. And it had to happen. Yeah. So we are, slowly growing, and it's a much more enjoyable grow.
Yeah. Growing so fast. It's easy to grow so fast, especially whenever you're providing a good service. But if you grow so fast that you don't have the infrastructure in your company built to handle it, then yeah, that's can be a shot to the foot a lot of times.
Oh yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, there's enough work out here. If I had 20 more service trucks, I'd have work for them. But am I going to get 20 good guys right off the bat? No, you're going to get 4 or 5 out of that 20 probably. The rest are all going to cost you money, or the customer will have them for a little bit and then they want them gone and then you got to find somebody else. I mean, that's what happened to me when we were down in Arizona. Is I basically hired some guys for a job that we took on down in Arizona, and customers ended up not liking the guys, and they're like, okay, we'll bring 2 more. Bring 3 more. It's like, well, I don't have any more to bring down. Like those were it right there. So then you have to try and find more work for them to do, along with getting more guys to fulfill that contract that you signed. So it's just, I stepped back from doing that. I went out of state. We do go out of state a little bit, into California, Utah, Idaho, Arizona, if we need to. But for the most part, it's only for established customers that I have a working relationship with. I don't take on any new big contract jobs out of state.
Oh, wow. That's good though. That's probably for the better, I would imagine.
Right. Yeah, it definitely is for the better. It's definitely, this last year was completely chaotic and not fun. And this year's been like a nice cruise. Everybody, like my crew's having a good time. I'm having a good time. My family's having a good time. It's a lot better this year. Just scaling back and just saying no to jobs. And it's broken. We'll get to it when we can. And that's it.
And I mean, if you have a good service, you're not going to lose those clients unless you're just way out. But most people are still going to say, you know what, I'd rather wait to have that, wait a couple extra days.
And that's what it came down to. I was really nervous that I was like, man, all these customers are going to get pissed at us and they're going to go find somebody else to do it. And they didn't. They just, every now and again, the guys my age in the Nevada area, Nevada has a ton of independent contractors for mechanics. There's probably within 200-mile radius of me, there's probably 35 independent mechanics.
Wow.
And so we kind of got together and we use each other for other jobs. Like, hey, can you got a spare guy? Like, will you go over here, bill me for it? So that way, it still looks like, obviously the customer knows that's not your company that showed up, but you're billing the customer for that guy being there. That guy doesn't have much contact with the customer, so it's not like that person's trying to steal your work, that kind of thing. So it's been working out really good.
Yeah, that's good whenever you guys can all group together and just help each other out.
Yeah.
Especially, that's one thing that, like, in our industry, that a lot of guys are like, well, I don't want to work with him. I don't want to do that. But I mean, it's like you're saying, there's work for all of us. If you have good rapport with your customers, they're not going to leave you for that guy. And
yeah, exactly.
Then that guy might call you if he's behind.
Exactly. And that's what ended up happening. And I don't know what, when I first started I got my start from another friend that had his own service truck, and he ended up buying the service truck. I leased to own it from him. And that was kind of like the eye-opening thing for me was, we're all doing the same job. Obviously, we're not going to all get along, but we probably have similar personalities in the fact that we all started our own business. We all wrench. We all do heavy equipment. Like, we're probably more similar than we are apart. Mm-hmm. And so why don't we start working together? So, quite a few of us, like over Christmas time, another guy named Frank, he got a banquet dinner set up. So there was a bunch of us. He invited us and our, wives out, or, significant other. And we had a dinner and we all sat down, and it was really nice. It's way harder to be mean to people when you're face to face with them and you're not, saying, oh, well, fuck that guy. And, I don't like his service. When you all sit down around a table and eat, it makes a big difference. And you guys just get to talk, just have normal conversation. You're like, oh, you know what? Yeah, my customer said that guy wasn't any good, but I just sat and had 2-hour conversation with him at dinner, and he seems like a nice guy. Maybe it was just a relationship issue between that customer and him, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Dude, sometimes just sitting down and talking to people is one of the greatest ways to solve things.
Right, it really is.
Yeah, I was having that conversation with somebody literally today. They were having an issue with another contractor, and I was like, have you considered just not texting them and not trying to blow up their phone and just like going and seeing them and asking about, your issues? Because that might help a lot.
Right. Huh. And especially over text too, it's so hard to understand context, what people mean, how they're saying it. Like a phone call even is a big difference.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It makes a huge difference. So how did you get your start?
Well, my old man was a cat guy for a long time. And then, so I actually didn't even want to wrench really. For some reason, when I was a little kid, I wanted to own semi trucks. And, so as I got older,
do that, right?
yeah, no shit. Right. And then as I got older, I realized, that I can't sit still very long. So, driving a truck down the road is probably not the best thing for me. So out of high school, I ended up, going to work at the mines because I lived in Winnemucca, the town that I have my other guys at. And I went to the work at the mines. It was okay. The problem, that red tape issue is one that always came up. Like, I felt like there was so much more that we could be doing, and we could get jobs done faster. We could do them better. But it was just like, don't worry about it. And it's a very, I don't want to say lazy, because the guys aren't lazy. It's a really hard job, but there's a lot of people that are just there to collect a check. And I was like, and so one of my supervisors at the time was like, hey, you should go to work for a dealer. You'll get a bunch of training, and, it'll be better for you in the long run. You'll be able to kind of set your own pace and stuff. So I did end up going to work for a dealer. While I was working at the dealer, I had a kid, and then my insurance at the dealer, they were like, well, the company was based out of California. I was a resident tech out of Nevada, but we had to go through their insurance and everything. And I got a call one day that they're like, hey, your insurance is going to go up. I don't know. I think my insurance was going to be like $1,600 a month is what I had to pay for it. Yeah. So, my buddy Toby was looking for a guy that he's trying to buy a truck for. And then it kind of just spiraled downhill after there. Yeah.
Wow. So you went. So did you go work for your buddy, or is that whenever your buddy?
He bought the truck. I started my company, and then I leased to own the truck from him. Okay. I still worked underneath his insurance and all that kind of stuff. So I had to pay an hourly rate to work underneath him like that. And then once my truck was paid off, I took the truck and then started working exclusively for my customers instead of for my customers and his.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So how long did you do that just by yourself?
So that took me it was about a year and a half for me to pay the truck off.
Oh, wow. That's pretty quick to pay off the truck, though. Because how much is a service truck?
So that truck, when I first bought it from him, was $98,000.
Yeah. That's pretty good to pay.
But our new ones are $300,000.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Trucks now are stupid.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So, okay. So you leased owned that from him. And how long ago was that whenever you first went out on your
So
own?
I started in June of 2016.
Okay.
So I did that for about a year and a half. And then before I had that one paid off, I had purchased another one and brought on a guy. So we actually both worked for him. And then at the time we were doing a lot of underground mining. So we didn't even really use the trucks. We drove a pickup out there, brought some big job boxes, put them down on the cage. And then we were at the 1700 shop. So we were 1700 feet below surface. And we worked out of the shop pretty much for about 6 months, maybe 8 months before I finished paying off the truck.
Wow. So you brought a guy on while you were still under that other guy?
Yep.
Huh.
So then I just paid him an hourly rate for us combined to work underneath him. And then he took it off the top and we technically worked underneath him. We're subs to him, basically.
Yeah. Okay. So you actually hired a guy before you were technically your own thing.
Yep.
Okay. That's pretty cool then. So what, did you just need that other guy while you were doing that? I mean, did you just need the help or did you foresee yourself growing at that point or?
He still works here. So we did need the help at the time. We were doing rebuilds. So we were rebuilding underground loaders and haul trucks and drills and bolters. So we needed a bunch of help. The mine didn't have the help to do it. So that's actually where I met another guy that works for me, was underneath there. Once I left there, it took me about 2 years to get him to come over, but he finally came over. So I met him there as well.
Nice. You just went in there and stole everybody, huh?
Yeah. So it worked out.
Yeah. How old are you?
31.
31. Cool, man. Dang. Yep. So you've done all that in the last few years. So how old were you when you started your own deal?
So it would have been 7 years ago. So 24.
Damn, son. That's a lot to do at 24 years old.
Right? It definitely was a lot.
Yeah. That's awesome, dude. That's incredible. So you leased own a truck and then you go working for this guy under this guy in a mine and you pick up 2 more employees whenever you're still in your mid 20s. And then you just keep growing from there, I guess.
Yep.
That's awesome. When did you get your own shop and all that?
So I leased a shop up until this year. And then in January it was finalized. So we moved into it. So I got my own shop that we bought this year.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And is that shop more of just like, is that to where you can do your rebuilds and all that good stuff in that shop?
Yeah, the nicest thing is working on our own service trucks. In the wintertime, it gets really cold here, really cold and snowy. So it's nice to be able to bring them in. Summertime, like today, it's like 103, so it gets really hot. So it's nice to bring them inside and work on them. But I do have one guy, the gentleman that works for me, he just does component rebuilds. So we do transmissions, diffs, axles, torque converters, stuff like that. So that's all he does inside the shop is just rebuild parts.
So at a young age, at 24 years old, what part of you said, screw all this, I just need to go out on my own?
A lot of it came from my wife. She's always just been like, whatever you want to do, just do it. And so I always wanted to own my own thing. And it just didn't seem like working for somebody else was working for me really good. And it could be because I'm really stubborn. But she's like, well, we're young now. It really sucked because my first son was born at the time that I went out on my own. So I really didn't get to see him for like 2 years. So that part was really hard on us, but it definitely was worth it, I would say, in the long run. But that's pretty much what it was. My wife just said, so my wife pretty much was like, we're young now. If, God forbid, if it fails, at least, it's only 5 years from now. So you can go to work for somebody and still get your retirement and still do all this stuff. A lot of people don't even start in the workforce till they're close to 30. So she's like, might as well try it now.
Hey, 1 second. I got a call from one of my foremen. I need to call him back real quick. I thought that was going to be a more important call than that. Getting a call at 7 p.m. from him. Normally, he never calls me. So if he calls me, it's usually because somebody got in an accident or something.
Right.
Cool, man. All right, back to you. So, yeah, your wife was like, go for it. So Yeah, that's awesome because that's a hard decision to make. So you had her support and you had her on your side and you said, I'm going to do this. At 24 years old, did you feel confident in your own experience to do that?
It was definitely very humbling. I definitely am probably way less cocky now than I was at 24, just because I've had a 7 years of humbling. But at the time, I was like, oh, fuck it, I can do this.
Yeah.
Like, it's gonna be no problem.
Yeah, I learned. I always tell the joke that I knew more whenever I was 20. I'm 25. I always tell the joke that I knew more whenever I was 21 years old than I do now at 25 years old.
Oh, absolutely. I feel the exact same way. I even like when it comes to like driving, I used to get like road rage and upset, and I was like, oh, fuck this guy. And now it's just kind of like,
I've got bigger things to worry about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't care that this guy's going 3 under.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, get out of the left lane. And now it's just I'll drive around him.
Just like, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've picked up along the way, you've picked up all these guys then. So, well, I mean, what made you want to grow then? I mean, so you're 24 years old and you say, okay, and I got one guy, and then you pick up 2 guys, and then you keep growing from there. Where did you just
Ego, probably.
ego?
Yeah, probably just like, fuck it, I can do this. Like, let's get bigger. And that's honestly what got me into trouble too, was ego. Just being like, oh yeah, we'll fucking take over. We can do it all.
Yeah.
And then just keep adding and adding and adding, and it ended up coming to a head. So
Yeah. Did that ever? I mean, you say 7 years of humbling. Let's hear a little more about that, because I know that sometimes age can play a role because you just don't have the experience of some of these guys that have been doing it for decades. I mean, where did that come in? Where was that factor?
Humbling, 2 sides of it. Sorry. Personal and business. Personal side, especially as like my wife and I get older, we've had to learn. Well, we had to learn to live together again after I was pretty much gone for 2 years working. Mm-hmm. And also understanding that, it's not just about me, it's about her and our family. And there's a huge dynamic to that portion being good for your business to be good, in my opinion. And so that was really humbling, understanding that, she might not just hang out for forever. Like, we're going to Europe in a couple months, and that's something that she's been asking for since we got together.
Nice.
And we've been married now for 10 years, and we're just now going. Like, stuff like that is really humbling, not, waking up and just assuming that person that's helped you through all this is going to be there. And business side, before when it was just me, there really wasn't a payroll. I didn't have to worry about making payroll, because if I didn't have the money to pay myself, I didn't start paying myself until about a year and a half ago. Wow. And then humbling, knowing that you have a guy working for you that has a wife and 4 kids, and he's got bills to pay, and he's got stuff to do, and you have to make sure that you have the money to pay him for the time that he worked for you, because that's your job. And then on the other side of that, getting called out to do things that you've never done before, and they see a big shiny service truck show up, and they want to know when it's going to be done. And you're like, well, I don't fucking know. I've never seen one of these things before. So I think that those 3 are the biggest things, like business wise. And I don't know. I barely still know how to run a business.
I don't think anybody knows how to run a business, because, dude, I have talked to some of the literal biggest business names out there. I mean, I've had a couple of them on this podcast even. And I mean, even they're just like, dude, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing half the time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you don't. You kind of just wing it. And, my wife got us set up with a financial advisor. So we're getting a lot more like tax answers and what to do with profit and how to profit share, so you pay less taxes and your guys make more money, and all this other stuff that, nobody teaches you. They don't even teach you how to do taxes in school. Like, besides, before I had my own business, you have like TurboTax. You just log in, put your shit in, and whatever they say you get is what you get. But the tax code is very extensive, and it's hard to understand. I don't understand it, so you have to hire somebody to do that. Mm-hmm. Like, there's just a lot of things that nobody tells you that you're going to have to figure out. Even business licenses. I didn't know that, because we're mobile mechanics, anytime we stop and do a job in that county, you have to have a county business license. If you do it in a town, you have to have a county and town business license in that town.
What?
So, yeah,
is that a Nevada rule, or is that just a rule, like a federal rule?
I don't know. It's definitely a Nevada law. because we didn't necessarily get in trouble. We just got caught by the city, and they said, well, where's your city business license? I was like, I don't know, I'm not from the city. And like, well, you have to have one.
What
So
the
they
hell?
let it go. And then on the mining side, through the state of Nevada, you have to do articles of incorporation from the state, and then anytime you work at a new mine, you have to file a permit to work at that mine.
Wow.
Which I also didn't know. The state inspector's the one who caught us. We were out at a mine site, and they're like, hey, we don't have your paperwork for you to be out here. I was like, I don't know. The fucking customer called me to come out here, so I just showed up. I didn't know I had to do anything else. So, and then you have to have an MSHA contractor ID number that you have to input all your information to, how many hours you worked, how many lost time accidents you had. There's just a lot of stuff that you have to do that the state, when you call to get a business license, they're just like, yeah, sure, here's your business license. It costs $200, and they don't tell you anything else. So it's a huge learning curve that I didn't know anything about, and I was behind for a long time.
How'd you end up learning all that? Did just
basically getting caught doing it? Yeah.
They say that owning a business is like just getting kicked in the nuts every single day, and boy, is that true.
Exactly. Yep, it really is.
So did you ever have like a mentor or anybody like that kind of helped you through some of that stuff? Or was that just where like you just Googled it?
On the business side, not so much. My mom and dad are a little entrepreneurial. They just they're close to retirement age, and they just started another business roughly the same time I did. So, I learned a little bit from that, but they're going through the same learning curves that I am as far as like licensing and stuff like that. Pretty much the business side of things, it's been like a fall uphill type of deal till you figure it out. But as far as working hard and doing that would be from my parents. They used to own some businesses back in the day that ended up not working out, and then they went back to work regular jobs and stuff, and now they're going back into owning businesses. And so it's a learning curve, but it's pretty much fail uphill until you figure it out.
Fail uphill. That's exactly how it is. I'm glad you mentioned all that, because that's just so cool to hear about that. Because I think that a lot of guys get into business because it's like old Ron Swanson said. He's like, business should be as easy as this. I have 5 apples. I sell you my 5 apples. You pay me. Right. That should be a business.
Yeah,
that's all it is. You think it's going to be like a lemonade stand, but bigger. But lemonade stands aren't getting taxed, and all these rules, laws, regulations, all that crap.
Yeah, it's wild. And even in the state of Nevada, I'm sure your state's probably similar, but like sales tax, if you sell parts, you have to prepay your sales tax for how many parts you're going to sell. And you're like, well, I don't have any fucking money because I haven't sold anything yet.
Say that again. You have to prepay your sales tax?
You have to prepay your sales tax for anything that you sell. So quarterly, obviously it's a guess because you don't know, but you're supposed to prepay your sales tax, and then at the end you get audited, and then however much, if you didn't sell as much as you thought, you can take a credit for the next one. But if you sold more than that, then you have to come up with another check.
What the actual fuck is going on in Nevada, dude?
Yeah, and then so we have a thing here too where it's I can't remember. It's like it's DEEDR is what it's called, but it's like department. It's like an educational training thing. So if you pay your employee more than the base salary in Nevada, I think it's like $55,000 or something like that, then you get taxed on top of that for however much money they made past that, and you have to pay the tax. So this is something that I found out 2 years ago. So I had 5 years of unpaid taxes. So they ended up showing up at my house and like, hey, you owe us $130,000.
Holy shit.
And I was like, that fucking sucks, dude, because I don't have that. So I don't know what to tell you. So I had to get put on a payment plan for that, and it's a tax that nobody tells you about.
Golly, dude.
Yeah.
I've never heard of prepaying your sales. I mean, in Oklahoma, it's you sell your stuff, you pay tax on what you sell, sales tax.
Right.
So, wow. Dude, that's crazy. Like I was talking to Chandler Gaddis a couple weeks ago on the podcast, and he was telling me stuff. I was like, dang, dude, Nevada's wild. And he's like, yeah, dude, it kind of fucking sucks sometimes, but holy shit.
It does. It really does. And then we have warehouse tax too. So like this shop, even when I was leasing a shop, even though you buy the pieces inside of it, so say I bought a desk or a computer or whatever, you have to pay a percentage of that every year until you don't use that piece anymore.
Wow.
Yeah, so if the desk costs you $500, they want $5 for the next forever until you stop using that desk.
What?
And it's per piece that's in your office, yeah.
Dude, that is the wackest shit I have ever heard in my life.
Yeah, so there's all these things that you don't know about, and it's so easy to get behind and not be able to pay it. Luckily, so far I've been able to catch up, but it's all things that you don't know, and you don't know about it until it catches up to you.
Yeah. My gosh, dude, that's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn. I mean, you guys have way stricter laws than we have here, but that's incredible. I've never even heard of like having to pay tax on the freaking desk that you're using right now.
Yeah, I was like, I already fucking bought it. Why do I have to pay tax on it again?
This desk is 100 years old. I mean,
Yeah, I was like, I got it for free off Facebook Marketplace, man. I didn't
what do
pay
you do
anything.
then? If it's free off Facebook Marketplace,
They come in, so they send an inspector in and they assess it, and then you have to pay what they assess.
So they come in and
What's
assess your office, and so do they do that for equipment too, or is that its own deal?
Kind of. Mobile equipment they don't, but any stationary equipment. So like our presses, stuff like that, they come in and assess it.
Wow, that's incredible. And the worst way possible.
Yeah, the dude shows up. I'm like, who the fuck are you? What are you doing here? And he's like, I'm here to assess your stuff. I'm like, not today. I don't even know what this is.
I think I'd just take a shit in the toilet, not flush, and just be like, assess this.
Right. Good luck,
What's
bud.
the toilet worth? Gosh, dude, that's ridiculous. Dang.
Yeah.
Well, I'll switch gears a little bit before we just go down that rabbit hole even further because that's insane. No, I also like that you talked about your relationship with your wife because that's such an important piece to a lot of the guys in our industry. And it's something that's not talked about very much. I listen to a lot of blue collar construction based podcasts and I never hear anybody talking about that side of things. And to me, it's important because I'm still very newly married. Now we've been together for 7 years. And so it's, she's my biggest supporter, but also it's like you're saying at times you've got to also not like treat your biggest supporter like shit. And I think it's so easy to do sometimes whenever you're working so much.
That's the thing. You're just working so much that you don't mean to be that person, but that's how it comes across. Like even talking with her, and you have to understand. Well, my wife has 2 salons, so she'll tell me about her day and she, how awful it was, or it was great or whatever. And you're thinking, well, you didn't go to work till 9:00 and you're done at 5:00. How can it be that bad? But her day is just different than your day. Yeah. That, she did have a bad day, and that's something that you have to listen to. I'm like, well, I woke up at 4 and didn't go home till 8:30. Like my day was shitty. But her day, she's taking care of the kids. She's taking care of our house. She's doing all these things that you're not doing. So just because she has a different circumstance doesn't mean that it wasn't any worse or any better.
Yeah. Yeah. Is she involved in your business at all?
Not really. Just she has 2 of her own salons, so she's super busy doing that. So basically, what it comes down to is I'll come home and be like, "Hey, we bought a service truck today," and she's like, "Okay, great."
Yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, that's great because, it's like you're saying too. Like whenever you scaled up so high, and then she was like, "Hey, let's maybe pump the brakes a little bit." I mean, a lot of guys probably would have had too much pride to say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep growing, or I'm going to make this work, but not fight for what really matters. And that is your family.
Right. And it's a hard pill to swallow because it didn't come overnight to me either. Mm-hmm. It was a long process, and it almost didn't end up great for us. And it was one of those things where I had to decide, is you running around like a chicken with your head cut off so you can have more shiny service trucks really worth not seeing your kids all the time? Mm-hmm. And, the answer I came up to was no.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so hard too, because I don't know. It's just a tough, relationships are hard. And I don't think that people give credit to how hard relationships are. Like my wife and I have been learning that. Like I said, we've been together a long time, but we're newly married, but it's like the more we're married, the more we both do our own separate business ventures and stuff like that. Shit gets hard, man. And especially in this industry, because we work such long hours. And I mean, she works in not the construction industry, but a blue collar industry as well, the oil industry. And I mean, it's just tough. And you have to really work at that marriage. People see us, and I'm sure people probably look at like you and your family and they say, oh, they just are so good. They have it all together, but they don't see all the work that goes into it and all the shitty nights that have been a result of that as well.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, you're 25. You've been together for 7 years. It's similar. So my wife and I have been married 10 years this year, and we're 31. So we've been together about 12 years total. And it's crazy how much different you are as people from when you met. You know, we were 17, 18 when we met,
Yeah.
compared to where we are at 31. It takes a lot to be able to grow together instead of apart, because you're two separate people that met when you're really young, and probably don't. You're not the same people that you are now.
Yeah. You grow and develop so much, and you both have
Right.
just different goals and dreams and ambitions. And it's just it's a tough balance there. Definitely
So,
not a solid answer to any of those.
oh no, for
That's
sure.
another thing that no one can, just like business, no one tells you how to be a great husband, or
Right. Exactly.
you learn by trial and error,
Yep.
no matter how good you think you are. Dang, man. Yeah. That's cool though. I mean, that's great that you guys have worked through all that good stuff. So
Yeah, it makes it way nicer. And I've taken, I've really tried to take a step back, and like I used to race motocross when I was younger.
Oh, nice.
And so this year my kids, we got motorcycles, and I got one again. And so now I take off for the weekend. We go ride motorcycles. We go to the lake. I've been trying to step back to spend more time with them and less time on the business. And I found out that doing that makes my business run better, because I'm just in a better mood in general, instead of so worried about it all the time and still not having fun. Now, at least I get to have fun, even though I'm worried about it.
Yeah, dude. And I think that so many guys don't realize that. So I have a friend who he only makes his guys work unless there's extreme circumstances. His company rule is we only work 7 hours a day, and
Right.
work like 6:30 to 2:30 or something like that. And he's
Right.
like, that's plus a lunch in there. And he's like, that's all we work. And he goes, I guarantee my crew can kick the shit out of any other crew out there, because
Right.
they're well rested and they want to be here.
Exactly. And one thing I took from listening to podcasts and stuff like that, I listen to a lot of them because I have a lot of time during the day. I turn my radio on and listen to them. Is the younger crowd, especially, I think, really wants, like, not to set their own pace, but they want different things. Like, they don't want to wake up at 4 and go home at 8 o'clock. Like, I'm best during these hours. One guy that worked for me, Forrest, he's out on his own truck now. He's a good friend of mine, but the kid could not wake up in the morning. Like, the guy wakes up at 7 and he looks like he's 5 years old, like sleepy eyes, like cannot get up. But he'll work till 11:30 at night, no problem.
Yeah.
So most jobs, I'd be like, "Hey, dude, can you get there by 8?" And then the guy would stay late. Like, that was just the schedule he liked, and it worked out okay for my customers, because I had another guy that would make sure they're running in the morning. That guy would get done, and then Forrest would go when they're done and fix problems at the end of the day while the equipment's not being ran anyways. So I think that's like what I've found with the younger crowd is, even like the soccer game things, like, yeah, just go to it, dude. Like, don't worry about it. Just go to it. The equipment will still be broke down, and the customer, the hard part with customers in the service industry is they expect, because I call you and I'm paying your rate, you're going to be there when I say you're going to be there. But that's just not how it works. And if those are the customers that you have, I have personally gotten rid of all of them. Now we have customers who really appreciate that we're there. And we have one job right now that we're on, and the contract I signed was for 4 10-hour days. And the guy that's been there, it works like 5:15s, probably 5:14s.
Wow.
And so when he needs to go, he just says, "Hey, dude, I'm not going to be here Friday afternoon." And nobody says a word about it, because they're like, "Hey, this guy's here all the time helping us out. He's got some family shit. Like, we'll see him on Monday."
Yeah.
And I think once you set that precedent, it's way easier. Now when customers call me and they say, "Hey, do you have somebody that can come do this?" Especially new people, I'll be like, "No, we're booked up for 3 weeks. Would you have anybody after hours that can come out?" We don't do after hours. We don't do holidays. We don't do after hours. We don't do any of that, because my guys need to be at home with their family. And that's something I learned along the way, because I needed to do that.
Yeah.
And I can't ask my guys, "Hey, I know it's 4th of July. Go ahead and go out there and work, because I'm going to be at the lake."
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to have any respect for me if I'm sitting there drinking beer on a boat and they're out fucking working.
Yeah. I mean, because they're just going to get so resentful, especially whenever they open up Instagram or whatever, they see all their friends out and they're like,
Yeah, like, "Oh, guys,
yes.
I'm having a blast."
Jeez. Yeah. That's awesome, man. And setting that precedent. And it's like you said, fire your customers sometimes, man. Customers can be absolutely shitty, and there's enough of them out there.
Yep. I actually learned that one of my friends, Jesse, he owns a field service company that's fucking 40 times the size of mine. He's an absolute stud. He's young too. He's my age. And he was the one who was just like, dude, you got to fire customers. I was like, I don't know, dude. I'm worried that I don't have enough work. And he's like, have you ever not had enough work? I was like, no. He's like, fire him. I was like, perfect, dude. I'm going to fucking do it.
Yeah. So where along the way did you decide, like, where did this culture you've built come from? Did you get that from just being, like, was it always like that? Did it just kind of come natural that, like, hey, yeah, I'm going to let my guys off early. I'm going to, if they want to, or I'm going to let them set their own schedule, or where did that
It probably comes from my dad working as field service back in the day. I remember him, like, not being able to go to my stuff and how frustrated he was that he couldn't go to some of my motorcycle races, or when I was in football, he couldn't go to my football games, stuff like that. And I remember how pissed he would be that he couldn't be there, but at the same time, it wasn't an option. Like, he had bills to pay. He always, him and my mom always, we were never wealthy, but I never had to worry whether we were going to eat or not. But I do remember my dad being, frustrated that my mom had to take us to all these things and he could never see them. Mm-hmm. So, and then the guy that works for me that's 70, he's my dad's best friend. And so he was kind of my mentor as well. And that came down from him too, that he's building a house in Mexico, and he's like, hey, is it cool if I go to Mexico? I'm like, yeah, dude, you're fucking 70, dude. I don't even know why you're here. Like,
I don't even know why you're still working.
And I think once we started doing that, it kind of always was a precedent for me. It was just, I was so nervous that we weren't going to have work, or I wasn't going to have money to pay the bills. But in reality, the more overtime one of the guys makes, the more it actually costs me, the less money I'm making. I make the most money when they're on straight time. So if we work less hours, I have less bills to pay. So go see your kid's soccer game, because I'm not going to be paying you overtime to be somewhere.
Dude, say that louder for the people in the back. Holy shit.
Right.
I don't think people realize what overtime costs them a lot of times.
It's astronomical for the employee and the employer.
Yeah. And some guys put it in their rates or bid it into their jobs, or however all that works out. I get it. Whenever I bid a asphalt highway job, yeah, I bid overtime into it. But at the same time, right, you get away with not paying overtime. It's better for everybody.
Yeah. And it's better for the bottom dollar too, because there's certain jobs that, I'll bid, like a mining gig. I know that they're going to be there 5 days a week, 14 hours a day. So obviously there's overtime built in. So I'm not going to charge an overtime rate. It's my flat rate, but I know that there's going to be overtime built into that. If my guy doesn't work that overtime, that's money in my pocket, because I'm already making more money to compensate for them being on overtime. And then they don't go on overtime. That's better for us.
Yeah, that's great, man. Yeah, and that's cool that you had a guy like you're saying your dad's best friend who works for you. That's awesome that he's there to say, hey, man, I've done it the old school way. Because a lot of those old school guys are like, well, back in my day, we worked 17 hours a day and didn't sleep and had 6 divorces. That you guys just wanted easy.
Exactly.
That guy's saying, dude, don't put your guys through that.
Right.
That's
and I noticed it in my guys once we started doing more of that they got just as much, if not more, done productivity wise, instead of just being there all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I see that too a lot, especially if you have a guy that, my mentality is just pay your guys something good. Now, some guys want overtime. Some guys, they like to work.
I got a couple guys that if they have the option to have overtime, they'll do it. They do it. But I have other guys that don't want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it goes both ways. And there's guys that I've had people quit where I work because they're not getting 60, 70 hours every single week. Now, a lot of those guys, frankly, are guys from Mexico that are here just to work and take that money back home. But still, you see that every now and again that, I'm not getting the hours I want, but I think that that's just an old school mentality. I think that there's very few people that are actually doing how you're doing it of, we're going to pay you enough to live. And we want you to also enjoy your life, not just work all the time.
Right.
That's good, man.
And then the benefits thing, you have to pay. I pay 100% of all my guys' health care for them and their family. And we don't have 401k at the moment. We're setting it up right now, so they'll have 401k. It's really hard for a small business to do. But I think setting it up that way and maybe making less money. But the thing about it is, too, especially once I have this financial advisor, there's a lot of benefits to doing it that way, because you can write off certain things that you give them, and then it costs you money, but you're also just not paying it in taxes either. So instead of me paying Uncle Sam to do it, I'd rather give the guys that work for me the money.
Yeah.
Much rather give them the money.
100%. Yeah.
but these are all things I didn't know, so I just did it my own way for a while. And finally, I was like, oh, maybe we should do this. Talk to him. He's like, yeah, you're doing it all wrong. I was like, yeah, I noticed.
That's why I'm here.
That's why I'm here. Yeah.
So whenever it was just you and a couple guys, then like, were you still just that lenient on that kind of stuff, or did it take some time?
No, this is within the last couple of years. I like I said, scaling back and stuff like that, kind of trying to change things to make it so it's better for everybody. Because when we first started, it was go, go, go. When we had 2-3 guys, it was a lot of fun because, I hired my buddies at first, which most of them still work here. So it was like a good time. It was fun at work. We were messing around, joking all the time, causing mayhem while still working, but it gets old.
Yeah. Yeah. You can only do that for so long.
Yeah, exactly. Especially now, I was the first one to have a family, but now those other guys have families and they have kids. So it's not as easy as just, you and your buddies staying out making money.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a big kicker too. Whenever you're young, like me and my buddies used to do that too. We literally do any work we could. It was just like late nights, early mornings, it was just fun. Right. Man. Especially
exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, it gets to the point where you're like, no, not anymore.
Not anymore. Like night shifts, I used to not mind night shifts at all. And now, unless a customer really asks and they have a special project, we don't do nights. But we used to fuck around on night shift. Like we used to, when we worked at this one mine, we'd take, there's a bunch of mice in the shop. So we built traps to catch the mice. And then we'd glue different colored hydraulic caps on their heads. So the mice would run around with these hydraulic caps. And then you could count the mice, how many each one of your teams had. Like it was a lot of fun back then. But now it's just like, I don't want to work nights.
Yeah, that is the fun part. I think that whenever you're growing a business, at least in my own experience, like you look at some of those times and you're like, man, like whenever you're in those times, you're like, all I want to do is like be to a point where it's like, I'm big, I got all these goals and dreams. Then also you look back and you're like, that was a lot of fun back then too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think about like when I bought my second service truck for the first time, I was like, fuck, dude. Like I have 2 service trucks. And now I'm like, Jesus Christ, we need another fucking service truck. Like it's just 2 totally different things. But if I could see where I was going to be, I'd be like, dude, you're going to have that many service trucks? No way. And now I'm just like, fuck, we need another one. Like it definitely, your life changes a lot. Yeah,
definitely. So like back then, whenever you were going from 1 to 2 service trucks or 2 to 3, did that scare the shit out of you?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I always knew that if I just had me and my service truck, I could make enough money to support me and my family. Like there's no brainer. If I had to, most of my family is still in North Dakota. That's where we're originally from. And I knew that if I had to go up to the oil field up there, I can drive up there and I can still provide for my family. Or if I have to go to Arizona to copper mines down there, I can do it. But once you start adding service trucks and the bills start stacking up, that's when it gets scary.
I bet. God, dude. Yeah, that's the type of stuff that I struggle with too, is just like, you get it and you're like, I should be happier in hell right now, but frankly, I want to throw up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
the scariest thing was when I bought my first brand new service truck.
Really?
Just because of the amount of money it was, and you could buy 3 used service trucks or 4 really nice used service trucks for the price of that one, and you're thinking, fuck, man, it better be worth it, because this is a huge undertaking and there's no going back.
Yeah. God, dude, I bet that pressure would be insane, especially as expensive as they are.
Yeah. And it's not like a house. You don't get 30 years to pay it off. They're like, hey, we need that money in 4 years.
And it costs just as much as a house, if not more.
They do. That's the thing. Yeah.
So where have you found most of your guys at?
Most of my guys have either came from dealerships that they weren't happy at, or personal friends. And then the other ones that I've gotten are referrals, like off of social media.
Mm-hmm. Have they all come in with experience, or have you got some that? I have one guy that was extremely green, like didn't even know how to, change his own oil, basically. And now he's in his own service truck. It's taken, he's almost with us for 3.5 years now, I think. And he's in his own service truck now. He does, he charges AC, he changes hoses, he does simple troubleshooting. But there's a lot of that there
that he can do. And then anytime we have a big project, we take him in with us, either myself or one of my more experienced techs, and we do the big project with him so he can slowly learn.
Wow. So why did you take him in?
His attitude.
He just wants it, huh?
Yeah, he showed up. Actually, his wife works at the salon with my wife. And he said that he told her that he was looking for a career change, and I posted a job posting on on a local page, and so she had him. She got my number from my wife and had him call me, and he showed up, and he was honest too. He's like, I don't know anything about this, but whatever you want me to do, whether it's sweeping floors, clean the bathroom, going out doing stuff with you guys, I'll do it. I just want to learn a trade.
Wow, that's incredible, man. And you took him in.
And now we're good friends. Like it definitely grew into a friendship, but he fucking kills it.
Dude, I see more people need to do that because, and how old is he?
He's 34.
Yeah. See, I see a lot of those guys that they just never learned a trade. They never learned how to work. They never had those things. But if the attitude's right, man, that's the biggest thing that I want to harp to any company out there. Because, and that's the beautiful thing is we have a lot of people that business owners or managers that listen to this. And dude, if you can get a guy just with a good killer attitude, you can teach him up. And I mean, that's my next question is how do you get a guy from doesn't even know how to change his own oil to now he's got his own service truck?
Well, for one, they have to want it, which he does. When he got his first, he's in his second service truck. We ended up selling the service truck that he was in. But when he got his first service truck, you could see it in his face. Like it was the holy grail. And he treats the service truck really nice. It's always polished and stuff. But how we got him there was me having a talk with him in the beginning that I understand that you're not going to know these things, but I don't want you to fuck stuff up either. You're not going to bother me by asking me questions. I'd rather you ask me or anybody in the shop, and I don't care if they get pissed at it, but we need to do it right. So if they have a problem with it, they can come to me, ask the question, and ask for help if you need help. If they tell you how to do it and you still don't know how to do it, ask them, hey man, I'm really sorry. I know you're busy. Can you take time to show me how to do this? And all the guys that I have working for me, they all love him because anytime they need help with something, I'll get a call, hey, what's Raul doing tomorrow? I'm like, well, he was doing this job. I'm like, well, I need help with this. Can you send him out? They all love working with him just because he may not know what he's doing, but he's got you covered. Just tell him what to do. Yeah.
Dude, that's incredible. And I think a lot of young kids have that attitude. Of course, he's not a young kid, but he's still in that younger age range. Right. I think a lot of people have that attitude of like, I want to learn. I just don't know where to start. And taking a guy in like that, yeah, it can be expensive and yeah, it can be time consuming, but obviously it pays dividends. And props to him for just asking questions because I think a lot of guys are too afraid to even ask.
Yeah, and that's a problem. And I think a lot of that comes from the older generation. And I have a wide selection of guys that work for me, but some of the people I've ran into, if you ask a question, they're like, why are you asking that? Aren't you a mechanic? Like, why are you asking that? And it's like, well, I'm asking because I don't fucking know. That's why I'm asking. Mm-hmm. And, they get blown off and pushed to the side. And I think that's where a lot of that tension comes from. And, you always hear, oh, the fucking millennials don't want to work. Well, I got a bunch of them working for me and they fucking kill it. So, I think it's one of those things where, yeah, there are a bunch that don't, but there are a bunch that do. You just have to show them how because there isn't auto shop anymore. There isn't woodworking. There aren't these things. Their parents probably have tech jobs, and so they don't change their oil. Like these are all things that you don't just. It's like me being a business owner. I did it wrong first. Well, I'm still probably doing it wrong, but it's things that you don't know. So until you find out, you just still don't know.
Yeah, and that's exactly it, man. They don't know. I mean, back then there was shops, classes in school. Back then, these people would go work summer jobs for a roofer or a local mechanic or something. They did that, but these kids don't do that anymore. Right. It's different. I mean, they're not made to do that. They don't have to do that. And then whenever they get out, it's like, well, shit, I don't know how to do any of this, but I'm willing to learn. But very few people are willing to teach. But I think the guys that are willing to teach, like you, are the guys that don't have a hiring problem and they don't have a retention problem.
Right. Yeah. We have neither a hiring problem or a retention problem. And I think that's where a lot of that comes from. And the guys that work for me also, they appreciate the help. So if he does ask questions, and I have one other guy that works for me, Brandon, and he kills it. He does a great job, but he was a little green when it came to heavy equipment, but he had the same attitude. He's like, yeah, dude, send me out there. I'll figure it out, or I'll ask for help or whatever. And everybody likes working with him. My older guys like working with him because the younger guys can, do a little bit more of the leg work, the heavy lifting, the doing stuff. But then the older guys need to share their information with the younger ones so that we can all grow as a team instead of, yeah, I got this group of guys that are really smart, but they can't lift heavy shit anymore. And I got this group of guys that can lift heavy shit, but they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. And that's one thing that I've talked about on the show a lot is bridging that gap between the older generation and the newer generation and getting them to work together. And that's exactly what you're doing. You're getting these, because a lot of those guys in that generation above us, they don't want to share that knowledge. They don't.
Right.
It's not that, and I don't even know that it's they don't want to. They don't know how to teach. They don't know that they don't want to. They just want to do their job and stay quiet and be done. So you've got to teach them how to teach. And then you've got to teach these younger guys how to learn and work. And if you can do both of those things and make them work together, that's amazing.
Well, and that's the thing. It always makes me laugh because something you always hear in the service side of stuff is you hear old guys, well, if it wasn't for that laptop, that guy couldn't fucking fix that. It's like, well, you can't fix it with the laptop. So I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Because you don't know how to do DEF, you don't know how to do SCR, you don't know how to do any of that stuff because you need your laptop for that. So yeah, maybe this guy isn't great at older equipment where he has to manually adjust things or check things. But he also didn't, one of the best programs is CAT's Think Big program, and they do teach you a lot of that stuff. But that's one of the few that does it. If you go to like a trade school for, heavy equipment trade school, most likely you're going to be learning on newer equipment that takes these things. So if you don't get the chance to work on older stuff, you don't know how to do it. So, but this old guy that's been working on old equipment for the last fucking 40 years doesn't know how to use a laptop. So there's definitely a nice crossover in between the two that they can share information. And I think as long as you set up your group of people that you have where it's a safe place to, mess around and like the amount of shenanigans that happen at this shop are unreal. Like it gets to the point where I'm like, all right, motherfuckers, like we're going to burn this place down if you guys don't quit. Like you got to stop. But it's also a very comfortable place for them to talk to each other.
That's awesome. Yeah. And you have to establish that as the owner, as the boss. I mean, you have to be the one to set that precedent of he's going to ask questions and you guys are going to answer him.
Right. And some of that comes down to if they have a problem, they call me for it, and it's up to me to figure out their problem. But at the same time, if I know that they've worked on something and obviously I have an issue trying to fix something, I could call them and say, hey, man, what do you think about this? Or how did you do this? It's definitely a sharing of information in a place that benefits us as a whole instead of just making one guy look good.
Yeah.
We had a problem when we did branch out when we were bigger and we were on contract jobs out of state. What would happen is you'd have like day shift come in and they would troubleshoot something. Well, then night shift would come in and be like, oh, it wasn't that, it was this. And then they relay that information to the customer. Well, it doesn't make you look any better than the guy on day shift. It makes DBM as a company look like shit. So how about we figure it out together and both of you guys can look like rock stars. And then because as soon as one guy dicks one guy down, it's just a revolving door that never stops.
Yeah. Yeah. I see that a lot in this industry.
Yeah, it's definitely bad in this industry for sure. And contractors do it to each other. They're like, well, this guy fucking told you it was this. It's actually this. Don't use him anymore. And it's like, well, not everybody's perfect. Obviously, there's better contractors than other contractors, and that's going to happen no matter what business you're in. There's going to be your fly-by-night guys that are fucking shady guys, but there's also a lot of really good companies.
Yeah. Yeah, there are. Yeah, and I think if a lot of those good companies, especially the ones that have been established a long time, can do what you've done, where they've taken a younger guy or they've taken somebody who doesn't know much, and they take these guys that have all this knowledge that are going to retire any day now.
Right.
If they can take those two and bridge them together, then they're going to be in it for the long haul. Whereas a lot of these guys are still just going, well, I want to hire somebody that's got experience.
Exactly. Well, and what a lot of the kids or younger people don't understand is you can make six figures easy as a field mechanic. It's not hard to do. You're making good money. You have good hours. You could make a really good living doing it, but nobody tells them that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to make $100,000 your first year, but probably within 5 to 6 years, you'll be making $100,000 or more. And that's how most of the construction trades are, really. But it's one of those things that, I think it, I don't know. I think it might be turning around a little bit because of, podcasts and things like that. And, people post social media, posting cool things and cool equipment and that kind of thing. But it's definitely a skill set that trades in general that is falling out.
Yeah, it is. I mean, overall it is. Now it's getting it seems like it's getting a little better. I mean, but sometimes social media makes you seem things,
Right.
but I think right now there's a lot of interest in the trades and in the industry, but there's not enough guys doing what you're doing that are truly investing in their people. They're just still doing it the old school way of, here's a shovel and a check and figure it out as you go. And if you don't cut it, then we're going to cut you.
Right.
Which you just can't do.
And I think social media has something to do with that too, because the guys that do have those jobs that, well, here's your fucking check and, see you on Monday, they get to see other people enjoying their work. And so that company that does that is having a harder time filling those positions because they can see other people enjoying their work and doing cool things. And like, if you want to look at, coal mines, you can type in coal mine and look at what they do, and you can see all these other things instead of you just being, shoveling dirt.
Yeah. Yeah. It shows the options for sure.
Exactly.
I had a guy on our show a while back, and he owns a paving company or he didn't own it, but he runs a big paving company in Florida. And he said, dude, I get tired of other contractors, employees showing up at my doorstep to put applications in. He goes, cause I can't hire them all.
Right. Yeah. I can't hire
And he
them
goes,
all.
I sat in a meeting of a pavement association meeting or something like that with all these people. And he said, I am getting all of your people coming and applying at my company. So you guys need to step it up.
Do something better.
Yeah.
No matter how, widespread the country is, it's still a tight-knit group of guys. Like, it's not that big. So yeah, you may be in a different part or something, but somebody knows this guy from here and somebody knows this guy from here. So it is a really small world.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take long for word to get out whether it's a good company or a bad company.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's true. And I think that something I've seen too is there's a lot of companies that have a good company reputation, but they're starting to lose that because they're still doing it the old way.
Right.
They've been around for 50 years, and they're getting, they're going to get their asses kicked eventually by guys like you who are doing it the new way and adapting and actually kind of understand the newer generation and what they want and how they want to work and how you can teach them. Because it's just different.
Yeah, exactly. And it is different. And, the other part of that is people want nice things while they're at work too. They don't want, I found this out with service trucks. Like, if you buy them a really nice service truck and, you have to tell them to take care of it, most of them just do. But it's better than riding around in a fucking 40-year-old piece of shit service truck. And you're like, well, I'm paying you, go do the job. Well, I also want AC and an air ride seat. And like, I want to have something nice to drive around. And then when you show up to a customer site, like, damn, look at that service truck. Like that looks nice. Like I've gotten more compliments on, like our service trucks and stuff like that than anything, because I paint mine a different color and people notice when they drive by, and I get messages all the time on Instagram and stuff like that. Hey, if you're ever looking for anybody, I saw your truck go down the road. And
what color
they don't
do you
know anything
paint?
about it. They're all gray. Like a charcoal gray. Yeah.
Dude, that's cool. Because nobody's driving gray service trucks. They're all white.
Right. That's the thing. That's what I'm saying. So like, my buddy Jesse paints all his black and stuff like that, but it's definitely something to stand you out.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you want to be memorable. Because, some guys, you can't ever be number one and you can't ever be the best, because that's all based on opinions, but you can be memorable.
Exactly. And the next guy that comes along, he's going to think he's the best, and that's fine. As long as, you take care of your people and that you're doing your best.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
they're going to remember those service trucks.
Right. So, and that's the thing, is people know. They're like, oh, hey, I saw this truck going down the road. Or, I tell them, oh, I'm with DBM. We have service trucks. They're like, oh, really? And I'm like, oh, it's the gray ones. And they're like, oh, fuck, I've seen that one. I was going over the parkway the other day and I saw one. I'm like, yep, that's it. But everybody else has white service trucks. So you don't think about it, because there's another white service truck.
Yeah. Dude, that's awesome. I love people who paint their trucks and equipment. I think that's so cool.
Right. I really like seeing painted equipment. It doesn't happen very much around here, but that's something I remember. I'm like, oh, fuck, that's the dude that paints all his equipment black. It looks good.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't ever see it around here either. I think it's social media makes it seem like more guys have done it, but
Right.
man, I think it's
I
cool
don't see it
whenever
that
guys do
often.
it. Yeah, I've very rarely seen it in the wild, and usually it's like driving by, and you're like, well, hold up. But yeah,
Right.
very rare.
I see a bunch of like Sunbelt green skid steers, but that's about it.
Yeah, that's a little different.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's cool, man. How'd you come up with the name DBM?
Actually, when it started, I was still working for the dealer, and a buddy of mine and I started working on like pickups and stuff for side money, and we came up with DBM because we were building bumpers and doing shit like that for pickups. And then when I decided to go out on my own, I had already bought the fictitious name, so I just kept it. So because it stands for Design, Build, Maintain, but we kind of went away from that and we rebranded to just DBM Equipment Repair.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah. So it basically came down to a money thing. I didn't want to pay another $200 for a different name.
Yeah. yeah, that's understandable, especially that early on.
Yeah, especially when you're first starting out, every penny counts. So
yeah, that's cool, man. Dang, well, it's been a lot of fun, man. What all would you tell anybody out there who's interested in becoming a field mechanic?
Even if you're interested in becoming a field mechanic, try and get as much training as you can wherever you're going to go. And I always try to push, mom and pop small businesses, because the big dealerships are always going to be around, whether it's their name on it or not. There's always going to be a cat dealer in your town. There's always going to be a Komatsu dealer in your town. But that little guy may give you a chance and may take a chance on you, so take one on him if possible. Obviously, if you live in a town that, doesn't offer that, then you go to a dealer and get some training.
So what are the pros and cons of going mom and pop versus dealer?
In my personal experience, even with the ones around here, is it's a lot more personable. Instead of you just being like, our cat dealer just got bought out, and so now they're a huge conglomerate. Well, you're just a number. Like if you don't you're just a number to them. Not saying that your work's not appreciated, but there's fucking 75 or 175 other mechanics. Whereas here, you're one of 8. Or if you go, there's a couple guys in town that are really good to work for too. They're really good independents. You're one of 4, one of 10 for them. So your effort means something to them, and hopefully they will return the favor. And the guys around here, we have really good independents in the area, and they do return the favor. They do the same things that we do. You get health benefits, you get 401k. If you're, your wife's sick or whatever, and you need to stay home and take care of the kids because she had to go do something, work will be there tomorrow. Like, I think that's what we have to offer over a dealership.
Wow. That's awesome, man. And you can't beat that.
No, and there's a bunch of the guys around here that are doing it, and I know, it's one thing that you can offer. There are dealerships that pay really high prices for guys, and that's not something that we can compete with as much. We pay really well, but we can't. Yeah, we can't. There's some dealerships that are charging or that are paying 20% more than us, but their rates also literally double our rate.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's one way that I've gotten a couple guys is they were at the dealer for a customer, a joint customer of me and the dealer, and the customer wants to keep that tech but doesn't want to pay the dealer. So I will take on that tech, buy them a truck, put them back out there, so they're getting the exact same person that they already built trust with, they have a relationship with, because they know they can fix their stuff, they know where their stuff's at, they know all this stuff, and now they're paying half price for them.
Wow.
So that's one thing that I've done that worked out well for me so far.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, and that's great. So, yeah, I was about to ask too, is like, can you guys compete with the dealer prices? And it sounds like for the most part you can, but there are times where the bigger companies are still in a big company.
Exactly. Like, they're offering crazy sign-on bonuses. They're right now, a couple of them are offering like $10,000, $15,000 sign-on bonuses to come over. So we can't compete with that, but we can compete on the level of freedom that you get versus, being told where and when you're going to be at all times.
And I think long run, you're going to win because those guys are offering sign-on bonuses because they can't find enough help because they're not willing to do what you're doing.
Yeah, they're offering sign-on bonuses because they can't get people to sign on.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So they can't.
The hardest ones to compete with. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say they're not willing to train up a guy like you. They're not willing to give that guy a chance. And that guy's going to be an awesome mechanic because you're teaching him that, whereas they're just trying to take people who already know what they're doing.
Exactly. The hardest people to compete with are the mines themselves because they, basically have an endless revenue supply to pay with. And then the other thing is the way they do their shift work. Most of them work like a Super 7 or a 5 on 4 off, 4 on 5 off. So they're going to make the same money as like my guys do, but technically they only work 6 months out of the year because half the month they have off. So that's a really hard thing to compete with, especially when you have a guy who's got a family and stuff, because he gets to spend half the month with his family instead of just the weekends. So that's a really hard thing to compete with, but that's not something that we can really compete with.
Yeah. Yeah, that's understandable. So now I got to lead you to my final question here, probably. I would say it's my final question, then ask 10 more. But what's the dirtiest job you've ever had to do?
Dirtiest job I've ever had to do. Probably when I first got out of high school, I went to work for the mine, and I worked on the heap leach pad. So it's where they take all the ore, dump it, and then they run like cyanide water and stuff on it, cyanide solution. And I had to plumb that I was on leach pad for like 8 months. So it's nasty, it's dry, or it's wet, it smells. It's an awful job.
Are you getting covered in that stuff?
Yeah. So you're not supposed to be around the solution that much, but you're piping it, you're plumbing it, you're checking for leaks. So you do get on it, and then it's so dusty because it's really fine dirt. That's probably the worst I've done.
Oh, dude, I can just imagine showering after that.
Yeah,
like your hair, your everything.
Yeah, and the scrap yards, I used to do a lot more work in the scrap yards than I do now, but we used to work on a lot of balers. So they take all this like scrap fridges and everything, and they put it in this big machine and they squish it up into a cube, like a 4x8 cube to load on trucks. But when you bring a fridge to scrap, at least when I do, I don't clean anything out of it. If I am at a house and you keep that door shut, just fucking throw it in there. So that was pretty gross. It would just like run out, and the smell and the insulation like mixes with hydraulic oil and gets really like itchy. That was a rough job too, but I would say the leach pad was still probably my least favorite.
Oh yeah, but I can see where you just get absolutely disgusting doing that too.
Yeah, it wasn't fun, that's for sure. But the cool part about the scrapyard is there's usually always there's always trinkets and shit you can find. Like I have a bunch of stuff at the shop, like jacks and stands and all kinds of shit that people throw away, and works great for me. So that part that made it better.
Dude, I love a good scrapyard.
Right?
They're just that's like my 10-year-old's like. My 10-year-old dreams right there in a scrapyard, just shit everywhere, just junk. And you're like, yes.
Yep. And then when you're testing equipment, you get to just like take a grapple and just sling it into the pile and grab as much shit as you can and then throw it in the next pile. Like it is a shitty job, but there's definitely way more fun aspects to it.
I've never ran those grapples or those magnets or anything. Like I've seen them whenever I'm at a scrapyard, and I'm always looking at those going, dude, I want to play with one for 10 minutes. Give me 10 minutes.
Right? Yeah, they're fun. Well, I never got to I never ran them for extended periods of time, but when you fix them and stuff, they're fun to play with. And
I bet.
You can they like tamp cars and stuff, so they got big weights that you pick up with the grapple or the magnet, and then you drop over your pile or in a railroad car or whatever, and it just fucking explodes the tin everywhere. And it definitely, like I said, it's like your 10-year-old self. You're like, fuck yeah.
Oh, I could have a lot of fun doing that.
Yeah.
We have a scrapyard here. I need to hit up the guy. I see the manager of the scrapyard here every morning at the gym. I need to just hit him up. Be like, all right, man, hear me out.
There you go. I need 10 minutes, dude.
Yeah, 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's funny. Well, cool, man. Well, I'll let you get back to your what day is it? Tuesday evening.
Tuesday, yep. Right on. I really appreciate it. I had a good time.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it.
Right on. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thanks.
See ya.